Hey now, Leaf Eater here, and real quick, this episode, featuring Dan Offen of the Position 6 podcast, is broken up into 2 parts. This is part 1, but part 2 will be featured on his podcast feed. It's like cross-promotion, yay! Anyone coming over, listening from his side of the world from Position 6 podcast, thank you, and I'm sorry, truly. I'm sorry. Watch us on YouTube, listen on your favorite podcast app of choice, and do the thing where you give us 5 stars. I'm trying to hoard them like toilet paper. Okay, yep, showtime. Thank you. Bye.
They're very nice and polite and supportive, my fans.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be. I imagine it's like it would be like academics writing, you know.
We want more
tweed coats and.
How did you find people to be polite? That's my question.
I guess I just release like in-depth stuff that doesn't rely on any level of memes at all. So anyone who's not polite would be turned off by it, I think.
So they have your viewers have a more refined taste.
Yeah. Because when I made it, I mean, this is almost a question that I could be answering on this podcast, but when I made it, I was like, there's nothing in Dota really for me, because all the podcasts that were there were like Zyori's Moonduck one, which is fine, but it was all very long and rambly, and the PPD one, which was all right, but didn't last for long. And I was like, there's nothing that I would listen to. So I was like, I want to make something that I would listen to.
I think we had a similar thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
But 2 different paths went down.
Yes. And that's why our fans are garbage human beings, much like us. They're not refined at all.
And I think your fans are proper, Dan, like yourself, who talks nice and I think has manners.
This is why we're working with you, Dan, because we want some of your fans. You feel free to take some of our fans, honestly, but we want some of those refined fans, please.
There is crossover. They message me whenever you shout me out. I get like 5 messages being like, "Oh, you've been shouted out on this podcast." I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
I'm glad. I only do that to intentionally throw shade.
Dan, are you saying that you don't listen to our podcast?
I do listen to it sometimes, but
I'll take sometimes.
But I tend to not listen to a lot of what people do because I don't want it to infect my style.
Ooh.
If that makes sense.
No, I totally understand because I do that with commentating. I don't listen to other Dota commentators. Like when I'm watching stuff, I specifically don't watch a lot of other Dota casters, like long form. Like if I'm gonna sit, if I'm not at a tournament, I'm watching it from home, then I won't spend the whole day listening to the Dota commentators because I don't want to pick up on things that they do. But I do listen to a lot of other esports commentators because those are the people that I do want to take things from, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Just like I would imagine you want to take other things from other podcasters, but I don't treat this well enough to try and refine my craft.
To be fair, I don't either. I think I've listened to, I want to say 6 or 7 episodes of Position 6, and that's more than I've listened to of any other Dota podcast. Because when we start, well, because I maybe I'm a refined person, so I fit the demographic, right? Because everyone else, I'm like, do I need to listen to Kyle and Cheever talk more? No, not really. But like, at least you were providing me with something interesting. So I'm like, oh, wait a second, this is a feed that I'll like actually subscribe to, because I did try and listen to like everyone's shit before we did our own.
I think it's worth doing. Are we recording, by the way?
Yeah, we have been.
Yeah, this is the patented side pole podcast opening. Welcome, Dan.
It's a rolling start. If you want a different start, we can do that. We can do it in post.
I'm pleased with this start.
The microphones are a little bit new for literally all of us. I think I'll either put your gain up, or you can get a little closer to your mouth, or I can ride you the whole time.
I did. I've never had great microphone etiquette. Actually, I did.
So doing stand-up,
I used to suck at it.
Really?
I did. There's a gig called The Blackout, which is a gong show. Do you know what a gong show is?
Yes.
No, please explain.
It's where there's 2 different types. There's the gong show and the blackout. The gong show is you go on, you got 5 minutes. If at any point in the 5 minutes 3 people in the audience hold up a card, you're booted off.
Okay.
So first time I did the gong show, this is when I was about 6 gigs in, and I walked out. I did an opener which went quite badly, and then I said, does anyone want to hear 5 minutes material about the philosopher Thomas Hobbes? and they held up free cards. I got booted off. And then later, when I was a bit more experienced, I've been going about 6 months, I did the so-called the blackout. You get 2 minutes. I lasted 4 minutes 55. You get 2 minutes of grace period, and then I lasted 4 minutes 55 seconds, and they booted me off. And I thought it'd be going well, and then someone told me it's because the microphone was about here,
Oh,
so no one could hear what I was talking.
he was just hanging down by your crotch, just like, oh.
And I thought it was going well because the front row was loving it.
Yeah.
But then I went back and smashed it. But
I always thought that I was like an MC rapper or something because I've always been a fan of holding the microphone upside down by the thing.
that one.
Yeah, or doing that, which is like unnecessary for like a comfort level of us right now. But just like if you're going to be on stage, you have to be as silly with the microphone as possible, is my understanding.
Hold up, I've never done that before. Please hold.
You just gotta caress the ball and then talk upside down. And these mics aren't as cardioid, so you can do that.
What up, West Covina?
Man,
I do feel pretty baller.
It was such a clusterfuck driving over here today. I thought it was going to be fine because no one's on the freeway because like everyone is like trying to not die in Los Angeles or I guess America or I guess the world. But like, boy, I forgot that it rained. So I'm like, I'll be there when the games are over. Don't worry, guys. We can do a show. It'll be great. And then smash cut to SpongeBob 5 hours later.
you were 10 minutes late. It was fine. I needed a bit of downtime.
Yeah, I had to do DHL recording because we did not finish yesterday.
DHL. The shipping.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I got
it. For ESL 1.
I got it. For ESL 1?
We need to record that footage for ESL 1.
Hold on, wait a second.
Canceled.
There's a thing that's not connecting in my head here. Is that ESL 1, that stopped happening, right?
Yes, La Majora is no longer happening.
I'm so upset about this because I was so happy to get a bunch of people to come out to our beautiful city.
Oh, yeah, this is a good time to tell you guys here at the podcast that we were planning on doing a live version of the podcast Saturday night.
Saturday the 21st, 7 p.m., Tire Bitter Brewery. It was walking distance from the venue.
Walking distance from the venue. ESL was going to cooperate with us and market it, which would have been baller.
We were going to have free tacos for everyone. We're going to have a taco cart there. There's going to be free food to get people in the door. There's going to be free tacos.
That is a low amount of confidence in your own product that you feel.
Dan, I would argue that that's an appropriate amount of confidence in your end product.
Yeah, I feel like we needed the food to convince people because there would be nothing else to do in Los Angeles after the major. Yeah. So surely like a podcast at a brewery people can drink would be great, right? But I'm like, no, we need tacos. But no longer. That's not happening. LA isn't happening. You might have had your first event be the last event ever, maybe?
I feel like I built up some momentum and now it's just pointless. Came out of here working for
6 months later, everyone's going to be like, who's that Dan guy? I don't remember him.
Would have forgotten. Or maybe they won't because I'll just watch this event over and over again, needing something to see.
They'll be so nostalgic about it.
Yeah. They'll be like, oh, those Halcyon days of Dota. Halcyon, sorry.
They'd be like, he was the really tall one, right?
Yeah, that was most of what got talked about when I was on stream.
Here we go. We'll walk that back. Wow, he's the really British one, right? There we go. We fixed it.
Yeah, it was fine. There was a lot of chat about how tall I was. Slacks spent a lot of time talking about my body.
That's true. He tried to get you naked on
tried
stream.
To get me naked on stream.
When's the last time you've been objectified like that?
Not that frequently, actually.
They're a lot more polite in the Great Britain than we are.
Yeah, it doesn't
happen. You're tall. Let me see you naked.
At my normal job, it very rarely happens. People demand I get naked.
I think that's like an HR thing.
Yeah,
but here I don't know who handles that. Is that like an LD or a God situation? Is that I don't know who does HR at the summit.
I think technically they may not have. They don't have someone dedicated to HR, but they do have. I know they do take HR classes and stuff.
That's nice.
So, well, I guess Slacks isn't a full-time BTS employee, so he might not have the HR classes.
He wasn't being paid; he was just here.
He wasn't even a contractor here. He just.
That's right. Cause
he was just an astray delivery man that came in and stole free food.
Because he was here for ESL that didn't happen.
Because the major was cancelled, he came all the way here to be interviewed by me in a closet and then just slept.
He spent half the time, please, God, hire me. I need a job.
Man, what happens? So ESL is not canceled, but postponed. Is my understanding. So does that mean? I mean, do you guys like sign contracts? Do you not get paid unless the event actually happens?
I do not get paid until the event actually happens. So I have contracts for about 50% of the events I would work. I would say. I do have a contract with. I'm pretty sure I have a contract for ESL One LA. That contract does not stipulate 50% up front. I only do that for events that I deem are high risk. And I've done that ever since GESC, and I apparently did not deem that ESL One was high risk. I mean, it's more like I wouldn't even take 50% for an event that wouldn't happen most of the time. For example, I did that with ePulse is in a company that they're trying to do an event. Hopefully I'm not blowing them out or anything, but they were going to do one last year. And so I signed, since they're a new tournament organizer and I'd been burdened by GESC, I had them do 50% up front. And they didn't do their event, and they were willing to pay me my 50% and everything. They asked me if I could lower it, which I did. Again, I wouldn't take 50% for an
guy.
Well, it came with a stipulation that when they do the event, they hire me.
Okay.
As like a sort of like, I'll do this for you.
So that'll pay out if
just
/ when the event ever happens.
Time. Yeah. I mean, like, it's free money. Like, I can't be greedy about free money. You know.
Are you taking your summit paycheck to the bank? Are you gonna like be like, wow, I did this Dota event, now go like buy a nice car in Los Angeles? Or
no, I might buy some new microphones for my podcast. That's what I promised people.
Nice.
What do you record on now?
Just a Blue Yeti.
Oh,
so it's not great. So I do actually want to get a good new recording.
That can I can help you with any of that. You can talk to me not here. No one wants to hear about that, but I'll be more than happy to help you with that if you need anything.
Joey gets really geeky when it comes up to these technical details, and like I remember after We Play, he talked to me about the cameras. Oh God. And he said some numbers and a name at me, and I didn't know what any of that meant. I just nodded my head.
We're all learning. We're recording this one on 3 separate tracks, so I can do everyone's audio individually.
Amazing.
I'm so excited about that.
That is good.
Yeah, so I can when Cap scratches his beard, that's always fun for me to edit out, and then I smack right
that's
there.
The sound.
It's hard to edit when we talk over it, but and then I do a lot of lip popping before I start speaking. So that's my least favorite. Yeah,
I actually really appreciate you do that real quickly because I also do that, and so when I hear you do it, like I already listened back to the cast and I know I do it, so it triggers me. So when you do it, it triggers me more, and so now it's like really enforcing it. I'm cutting out that habit pretty quickly.
You're cutting out the habit. I think that there's like a point to the habit because normally I feel like that's a signal or a cue that someone wants to talk.
Yes.
And if you have like a good rapport with the people you're doing, like it's very easy to like switch speakers. But then if you're doing an audio medium, it's incredibly annoying.
Yeah.
It is annoying.
My headphones aren't staying on. I'm just going to be done with them. I'm just hoping the audio sounds fine now.
I'm sure it'll be all right.
Man, whatever.
But I record on separate tracks because I do over the internet, so I cut out so much of my stuff. I can just go like all the time when they're talking. It's like yes, and I just cut all of that out.
Do you find yourself editing your podcasts now less than you were in the beginning, or do you spend more time editing the audio?
Much less. The beginning was like I pretty much stripped the whole thing. I used to re-record loads, which was I think it made it quite sterile. So I started, especially when I was doing more talent interviews, I was like, actually, I can just leave this. Like the first one I did with Zayori, that was the first one I didn't really edit because it was so long. I was like, I cannot be bothered to this. So I just like let it run.
Dude, Zayori, he can talk, man.
Host of Shared Tango's sister podcast.
He's got a lot of combination. Like he's really passionate about things, and he's got a lot of weird knowledge about stuff. So
I'm not flaming him; he was great, but it was. And then I kind of started relaxing a bit more, and it was better. But I edit more with players because they need it.
If you listen to the first episode of our show, Cap and I do not say or once because I cut every single one out. I edited the fuck out of that episode, and I'm like, wow, I'm really proud of what I did here. And then I think by episode like 7, like the amount of ums and ahs that are back in the show are exponentially more.
You know what's funny is that I don't even view listening back to my cast and stuff. they always tell you us are like that's filler language, cut that out, etc., etc. But in the long form of commentary, I actually find that us are not that bad.
I think they're fine. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, it's a natural form of communicating, and especially the more exaggerated ones, not so much the filler ones, but I still feel like it's actually just a natural.
I like them to be out my questions. I like my questions to feel very direct and singular, which they normally are when I say them, but often I need to cut out little bits, and just so the listener knows what I'm talking about, which is fine.
Where are you going? What are you doing?
How's your team going? And I don't know who I'm doing that. But if it's them, I leave a lot of stuff in now, which I think makes it nicer. But I cut out all my when I'm listening to them. And I live near an ambulance station. I don't know if you noticed this when I interviewed you. There'd just be ambulances going past constantly.
I do remember something about that, yeah.
And also my chair's very loud and I move around and it goes...
So you need to get new microphones, some WD-40.
WD-40.
Yeah.
And maybe a new apartment. The third one seems more cost prohibitive than the first two, to be honest.
I've got to send a new contract.
That summit check better be big.
Like, hey,
It is not. I was going to work this event for free. That was my original offer. But they said they were going to pay me, which was nice of them.
I love it. I was going to work this event for free. That was my original offer. Like, as in you could somehow go farther down from there. As in if they negotiate hard enough, you're like, fine, I'll pay you $200.
how are they going to talk you down from that? You're like, I'll get my own flight. I'll get my own hotel room. I'll rent you a car.
There was a point where I was like, I will probably... Because I wasn't sure it was going to happen, because I think me coming to this was very contingent on Cinderin not coming. And Cinderin, when he decided not to come, they could then afford someone who's a bit more risk. Because this is my first event, it's the summit. It's like a big deal, I think, for them to take a risk on someone who's never been at an event, for an event that's quite pally. And it's about people who all know each other.
Do you know what that word is?
Pally. Friendly.
Friendly?
It means friendly.
Oh, does it mean friendly?
Joey, Jesus, you idiot.
Okay.
How did you not know that? Of course I knew what
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
pally meant.
I'm really sorry, Austin. Sorry, Dan, go on.
So I kind of... Because my girlfriend's studying at the moment, so she can't take any holiday. And so I was like, I'm just going to take a holiday. I'll work an event for free. And that would be a good way to have fun and also kind of get myself in front of people. But I think that I did enough work for them. They were like, I feel quite bad not paying him, so they're now paying me. But like, not very much, but enough that it's more than I would make my normal job.
Yeah, that would be bad for every other talent. They're like, wait a second, they're not paying Dan. Oh no, I'm going to bring everyone else's rates down.
Yes, but also they did have to fly me out, which costs more than US talent. So there is more expense involved in me.
That's very true. Although airplane's really cheap right now.
Yeah, but it wasn't when they booked it. It was a significant amount.
Yeah, because this event wasn't like it was thrown together is the wrong word, but like it definitely had not as long of a lead time as everything else. So I can imagine hey, do you want to get like a ticket from the UK to the LA on not long notice? Okay, here you go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's some kind of max price. But I also I just think you're doing a podcast and people really like it, but you're just kind of sitting at home and you need that first event. And I've been kind of emailing the PGLs and the Dream Leagues and they'd never respond to me.
Yeah.
And I think, well, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But I think now people know I'm at least a safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
You're not a crazy person.
I'm not an insane man who's going to run around shoving microphones into faces.
I would say that even being able to get like a few clips together and putting it together in a YouTube video, even if you don't like publicize it anywhere, if you just include that in your email with them, like here's an example of my work, then maybe they would be more likely to. Talent are really bad at doing stuff like that. Like Toby's always told me like he was going to create a highlight video of all of his stuff, and like I've always thought that would be a good idea as well for talent. Nobody does it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Maybe because there's not that much competition, or like people are for the most part are already kind of established and it's the same pool of people. So there's not like people who are like submitting reels and being like here.
Yeah, and I think it's also like there's also the factor there's nobody who is unknown in the scene, I guess, in a way. Yeah. Like the tournament organizers that are in know esports and therefore they know like other, you know, or at the very least they talk to people who do. know and can recommend based off of some expertise.
How did the conversation get broached about you like coming here in the first place? Were you like messaging gods and being like, "Yo, dog," or did someone approach you, or what was that?
I was already talking to Dakota a lot because I did content for the last summit.
Okay.
I wrote one sketch, and this one they messaged me when they were thinking about doing it, asking me to help with the theme. I wanted to do a punk theme, like a house party punk show.
Yeah.
Which I thought would be really fun, and they didn't do that.
That would have been cool.
I got a lot of outfits for that.
Maybe the next one. And we've been talking, I kind of came up with the idea for the Ken Burns sketch. I wanted to do this long one about like a Rumpelstiltskin parody about RTZ. Just didn't make any sense, but it was quite funny. And then
You really are following in Slags' footsteps then.
And then I basically said, look, I've got a spare holiday. I'll come out and do this if you pay my expenses, because it will be good for me. And they said, we're already going to ask you to do that. Maybe they would have asked me to do it for money. I severely compromised my negotiating position. But, then they did say they would pay me enough, which is great. Although I've earned enough money in my normal life, so it's fine. But it was just kind of something that I wanted to do. I think it's really hard for people trying to do the stuff that I'm trying to do to get booked. Like, if you're a commentator, there's a ladder. You do qualifiers, you do opens, you do close, then maybe you do off-site stuff, and then maybe you get invited to a LAN. If you're trying to do interviewing content and hosting, which is what I'm trying to do, there's no ladder at all. You either do an event or you don't.
Yeah.
I can interview people at home, but there's no proof that I can do it in a live setting. I can't host. Like, I can't just sit around in a room.
Yeah. Where's your panel? Who are you tossing to?
Yeah,
like, what are you doing if you're not there? I'm trying to think of people who have come up naturally like that in the scene, because you think about, like, your DJ Wheats were established, your Red Eyes are pretty established, your Machines were like very involved in other games.
Yeah.
Like
Rich was involved in games today.
Rich was involved in other games too. Yeah, so it feels like the hardest. Like, you picked the hardest lane to try and come up in for yourself with the most resistance.
I thought it'd be a lot easier.
Shane is a good example of a content creator who, he's become a content creator basically, but had to get a real job, and because he wasn't getting hired enough for talent events, and he started working for ESL. And I think he originally started working on the social media side, which involves just a little bit of content creation. Now he's, directing these DHL, like these bigger advertisement videos and stuff, and like that's his main job. So you got Malstrix, who's just been in the esports scene forever. He's been a writer forever.
A very long time, an incredibly long time.
Yeah.
And occasionally you see at events an interview you don't know, but they're normally someone who's probably not being paid much, if at all.
Or like really local, like your Erie
Really,
Newmans.
really local. Ryanessa went to Epicenter, did a really great job, and then hasn't been hired for 8 months for a Dota event. So it kind of feels a bit feisty, famine at the moment for people trying to do non-commentary stuff, which is why I felt I needed a bump. And I think Summit was a good place to do it, because I could prove I could host somewhat, and I could prove I could do content really well.
Or just be flexible, because you were kind of hosting, you were kind of doing content, you were like literally casting, which I don't know if that was the intent when you flew over here. Like there was so much different.
Yeah.
Like there was a wide variety of you, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. You know what's funny? There was just that social media conversation with all the various esports personalities weighing in on the fact that should you ever have to work for free? And all the old dogs are always like, I worked for years for free. Of course that's going to be a possibility. And then all the guys who are, I feel like all the guys who are trying to make it right now we're all like, I mean, if they're making money, why should you ever have to work for free? So what do you think about that, Dan?
I think the bare minimum should be expenses. If I'd paid to come here, that would have been atrocious, I think. And I think what a lot of the older people saying by work for free is you will have to pay to work, because you have to pay your travel, you have to pay your food. I have not spent any money the whole time I've been here. So I've actually, to be honest, saved money by being in LA. So that makes it much more affordable for me. I think working for free is not really something that should be enforced in an industry. I think for talent it is different, because to a degree you're working for very direct exposure, and you're working for the thrill of being in front of camera and in front of an audience, which is fun. But if you're like someone who wants to be working behind the scenes, then don't work for free. That's ridiculous.
Sure.
You're not all you're doing is providing free labor for someone who then might maybe like you.
What do you think about events that have like the very menial jobs they have volunteers for?
Yeah.
And maybe they get the volunteers like backstage access, obviously. Maybe they feed them.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Is that...
I mean, I did something similar to that at Reading Festival. I got paid, but a lot of people go to Reading Festival, work 2 days, get a free event, which is fine. But I think if you're going to an esport event and working 6 hours to attend an event, I don't think esports events are good enough to justify that.
Agreed.
Like,
hard agree.
you can just watch it on Twitch ultimately, and it is cool being there, but if you're working the whole time, how cool is that going to be?
It feels really different for me now comparing like this conversation in 2020 versus what this conversation would have been in 2010 when there was substantially less money flowing around and people were working for free just for like networking sake or foot in the door sake. And you know, I'm generally never a fan of like, hey, let's go do a bunch of free labor and have other people exploit you. Like I'm not super into that. But like I did some work for some old StarCraft leagues for free, and it ultimately ended up paying dividends through networking and people that I met and friendships that I still have years later. So it's hard to like completely condemn the idea for me of people not doing anything for free. But like gas, airplanes, expenses, food, like. And if you're working for less than that, it feels real shit.
But the thing is that all the people who are there are saying, oh, well, I got to where I am by working for free. And it's like, yes, but you could have got where you are if someone had paid you and you would have had a nicer time and your life would have been less hard. And also, it's a reflection of privilege that you're able to do that. Like, I come from a very rich family and I have a degree of a safety net that I can take risks. I think that is just going to lead to more people like me dominating the scene. And people who can't afford to take the risks that I'm able to take being excluded and squeezed out.
You know, I think about it, and there are some people I see at events that just attend the events. And I see like the same person show up at different events. And I usually, the first thing I think about is, God damn, what are you doing here at an event in Europe when you live in NA? Like, that's all I could think about. It just seems an impossibility to me, but it's because I know that they have help.
Monies.
They have the monies.
Yeah, I
It's a big problem in comedy as well. I never took like that much financial help from my parents. I lived at home. They didn't give me money, but it was like I couldn't have taken the risks and quit the jobs that I did to do comedy for 4 years if I had to work, like the amount of much, and that just leads to a comedy scene that's so full of middle class white men. Not that there can't be rich white women as well, but or rich
I've
people.
seen Miss Maisel. I know exactly what you're talking about, right?
Or rich people of ethnic minorities. But it's just it leads to this top-heavy, horrible scene, and then the working class people can't get there, and especially in the UK, where in comedy you have to do Edinburgh every year to get anywhere, which is $4,000 you've got to spend. It's just not possible, and it's a real problem in comedy that you're expected to work for free or expenses, which often, I used to get paid for an open spot in, say, like Southampton. I'd be paid 25 quid, and it would be about 40 quid to get there. And you're like, I'm losing 15 quid to go and perform in front of 250 paying customers who love me, and I'm losing 15 quid for this, and it's nasty. And I don't want to see esports get more like that, where it's reliant on volunteers, people giving up their time in the hope that it leads to something, and paying is no longer normalized.
I could definitely see that it becoming more that way for the talent field. Actually, maybe no, I actually take that back. Because there's actually two, like, comedy part of the reason, right, is that there's just one stage, and you're getting the opportunity to be in front of there. But I feel like in esports, weirdly enough, there's like too much content that people almost have to get paid. Yeah. Because those people are needed. There's too many qualifiers. There's too many games going on that there's always going to be more casters needed.
Yeah, there's a lot of casters in esports who are getting paid who maybe aren't incredible. Which in like I often look at that tier 2 realm of casters and go, not to call out anyone in particular, but some of them aren't very good. And I go, in comedy you'd be nowhere, and it's weird that you are able to scrape a living in casting when a lot of people don't think you're very good. Which is, I think, nice to a degree, but maybe there could be more competition in casting, perhaps.
What was you said you did comedy for 4 years. What was like the death nail for that? When did you stop?
It was getting to the point where I was close to being professional. I was close to breaking through to the point where I could become a professional. So I was doing like, as I said, like open 10s where you get a bit of money and then they say, I'm going to move you up to a 20 next time. And I was getting a lot of those offers and having to email again and again being like, can I please have a 20? And they'd be like, yeah, in 6 months. And it's like, so slow. And I just started...
A 20 meeting, your set is 20 minutes long.
20 minutes long.
Correct.
So Open Spot does 10.
I'm glad you asked. I have no idea.
See, now, I asked about the word, and you didn't really want to ask about that? Jeez, come on. You gotta leave me on a limb here.
I figured... See, here's the part of the thing, Joey. This is a secret thing of commentary. Sometimes you just let somebody talk, and if they say something you don't understand, then eventually you'll just glean it from the conversation.
Yeah. No, that's
that
context.
way you don't have to look stupid.
That's context clues. I don't want the audience to feel stupid, though.
And then once
I'm being the audience.
Once I get it, then I in turn dumb it down. So you mean that...
Yeah. So everyone understands. So a British comedy night is 20 at the beginning, 20 minutes from an opener who's being paid. Usually 2 open spots who are doing 10 minutes, who will be often paid expenses. If Jeff Whiting is doing it, they will not be paid anything.
Who's Jeff Whiting?
He runs a load of gigs called Mirth Control. I did hundreds of gigs for him. He said he loved me and he would start moving me up to 20s, and then he never did. And then a headliner who's doing 20 minutes and is being paid more than everyone else, and an MC who does the whole thing together, and they're being paid. And I was doing a lot of them. Jeff Whiting was being like, I'm going to move you up to 20s, you're really amazing. And I was getting there. And I did, there's a gig in London called Angel Comedy, which if you're ever in London, you should go to. Very good gig. And I'd been wanting to get their middle spot, their 10-minute spot for ages. And I finally did. And I did it and I did pretty well. Came off stage and I was like, I fucking hate that. That was awful. Because I didn't do well enough to differentiate myself from everyone else in the scene.
I see.
I was like, I've not smashed that, so I may get booked I may get booked for a paid spot soon, maybe. But there was just so much pressure. I had to do incredibly well every time to differentiate myself. And I kind of was like, if I hate this much now, I'm going to hate it more in 10 years. So why do you keep on trying? Do something better.
Because everything's better when you have an HBO show, right?
Yeah.
That's why you do it for 10 years.
But I wasn't going to get on television because there's just too many white straight men in comedy. There's loads of us, and some of us are really good, some of us are really bad. I was in the quite good category, but there's just too many, and it's really important to have varied bills so the audience aren't seeing the same people over and over again. It's really important to have all the wave before me are all white men, and it's really important that the next wave has a load of women and ethnic minorities in there, and the people who have come through from my cohort are incredible comedians, and I'm so pleased to see them do well. But for me, it just meant there was no attention being given to me. So I was never going to get on television because I wasn't quite good enough to be the best white man, and I wasn't interesting enough to be anything else. So I used to talk a lot about the disabilities that I have, but it wasn't quite interesting enough. But so I kind of just felt I'm going to be a road comic for 10 years, or I'm going to try something different. So I was like, I'm just going to get a job. I got a job, and I was like, I'm bored of having a job. I'm going to try doing esports.
I think that's an interesting and maybe somewhat dangerous conversation. The fact that you're able to identify the fact that there are just a lot of white men, and therefore, in a way, like you're like set in a bad position, but at the same time, you also just through being born white male, you have a step up. So it's like
it's a complicated one.
Yeah, it's a very complicated discussion, and I feel like many people, just the acknowledgement of like, oh, but like if I was a different race or if I was a different sex, maybe I would be in a better position in my career where I'm at right now. Just that acknowledgement of that is like some people would find
it's hard. It's easier and harder in comedy because you probably get easier gigs. Like audiences hate women and they're nasty to them.
Right.
And if you go out of London,
this is sounding a lot like esports commentary right now. Yep. The audience hates women. Go on.
And if you go outside of London, a lot of them will hate ethnic minorities. And so it can be really, really tough. And so as a white man, which is what I was, and still am, but you go around
and I'm like, has that changed? Okay.
And you do well at all these gigs and you keep on doing well and you kind of go, well, why am I not getting my due? And it's partially just because the audiences are more predisposed to like you. that you do well so often. And I think a lot of the men who were very bitter, who'd been going longer than I had, didn't realise that. They were like, but I'm always doing well, and these women aren't doing that well. And it's like the audiences like you more because they're sexists. And often it was just because there's more attention gets given to people who are different. But I just kind of feel that it was, in the end, it wasn't what I needed to be doing anymore. And seeing the people that have come through who are now getting on television, people like Sarah Keyworth and Olga Koch, and people who watch British panel shows now might know Ed Knight's doing very well, Jacob Hawley. I think they're incredible, and they were way better than I ever was by so far of a margin that I don't think, even if I was the most interesting demographic in the world, I necessarily would have broken through. But you don't know. Because you get more attention, you get better gigs, and you get more chance to grow. But it just wasn't for me in the end. And I grew a huge amount as a person over those 4 years I did comedy. And it was just the right time to give up and try something different. But I have such a desire to create that I had to move into something else.
Right.
Have you always had that much introspection? Because I feel like that's kind of the most interesting thing for me, right? That I think a lot of people might not make those self-realizations.
I didn't always have... I think I was becoming more bitter towards the end. Like, I was becoming one of those guys who goes, all the women coming up, taking my jobs.
So you were Twitch chat.
Yeah, I was becoming that. And having these kind of a conversation about how hard it was to be a white man in comedy. And I think that was part of the reason I wanted to quit, because I was just becoming this bitter, horrible guy.
Yeah.
And it was not nice. And esports is people rag on about esports being not friendly. I remember PPD in the first interview I did of him being like, well, good luck doing content creation because everyone's horrible. And I was like, actually, the people are quite nice. I mean, certainly the people who have listened to my stuff, everyone's really supportive, and they want you to grow, and they want you to do well, and they care about the stuff that you make. Whereas in comedy, it's quite easy to just kind of go through waves of indifference at people who don't particularly care.
Right. No, I feel like that definitely... Going through comedy definitely set a very low bar for when it comes to your audience and your fans. They were just like, any sort of appreciation came up, you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like I feel like a lot of commentators, a lot of talent in general, if they quickly skyrocket, if they, especially like maybe former pro players or like somebody who has a natural step up and people want to be able to like them, they'll skyrocket upwards, and then they'll get used to every tournament I'm getting a thread. Every tournament people are telling me, I did a great job. And especially if you are doing a great job and you're working hard to be able to like improve and stuff like that, like you're seeing this direct feedback. I worked hard. I did this like maybe this one little thing was really cool by me. It went up on Reddit, very successful. You get used to that feedback loop, and then just as simple as like that you no longer getting that really good feedback, no longer getting those Reddit threads and stuff, like you get used to that, and then all of a sudden you start feeling like something's wrong.
Yeah.
You're like, do people not appreciate me anymore? Like, I had this really funny moment. It didn't even show up on Reddit. What happened to that? Like, do people not like me? Maybe like, and it can go two different ways from there. It can be, you start thinking about yourself and like thinking, am I bad? You start thinking about like, maybe you put it down on your audience and be like, why don't they appreciate that stuff? Or, and then you like that also, either way, it leads into really, any negative feedback hits you really hard.
Yeah.
It's just it's very much about just what you get used to, and then as it changes,
The idea of tying any amount of like self-worth or gratification from something as fickle as Reddit is like, I mean, I don't want to talk down anyone who does that, because nothing feels greater than being like, hey, I did something that I really liked and other people really liked it, and people talk about it on Reddit.
Natural.
It's very great. It's very natural.
Like, there are very few people that I know that are able to disregard that entirely. Merlini's one of them.
But like overall, to get stuck in that cycle and like kind of tie some kind of self-worth to Reddit, it's like oof, because eventually you're gonna get burned in some way, shape, or form, and then you're gonna have not a good day. So
that's why I identify with a lot of what you've been talking about with your comedy, because because I feel like I have some very similar parallels, but like obviously my start in Join Dota was like very negative.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to ask about that.
It was the Join Dota. It was the Toby channel. That was literally what it was. So every single time I was up, people were literally just asking like, "Who's this guy that's not Toby?" You know, and then a question of like, why isn't he being more like Toby? Like, why is he trying to act like Toby? Why is he screaming at team fights like Toby? He's just trying to be Toby. You know, like it just becomes, and so it was very negative for very long. So that was what I got used to. You know,
and so nice.
Yeah, and so I see, I for example, I'll just name it right now. Like I saw the other side of the fence really heavily with Kyle, because Kyle, he rocketed upwards, and he's a great talent, right? He does very, very good, and he makes other panelists look good in the way he's so extreme as well. And so he got a lot of love, and then that was his norm, and then it just kind of went away. I got to experience the opposite, which was just getting shit on nonstop, and then slowly it just went away, and it going away, it felt great. I was like, I'm no longer getting shit on. Then once I started getting praise threads, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
This shit's like
I'm
crack.
gonna do this for the rest of my life, loaded up into my veins, baby. But I still since I experienced the extreme negative, I never relied on that too much. I never looked at that too much, because I always knew it could go away. You know, it could go away in an instant. It could turn on you.
Now that you're known as like a reliable, safe pair of hands, there's like no one. If you do well at an event, there's no one going to be making a post about how good Capitalist is.
Oh yeah,
I think because you're going to be good. That's what you're known as being.
I will give you a great example of the one. Not one time. I've done it plenty of times. But the one time I had some hope, an expectation of getting some sort of feedback, whether it was good or bad, was when I hosted Dota Pit. It was the very first time that I'd hosted. Here's the thing. Every single host that had ever come through before had gotten feedback, right? Had gotten some sort of Reddit thread. And for Dota Pit, there wasn't anything. And especially because I thought I did a good job, especially because the finals panel was, I had Eternal Envy and Kyle on, you know, and that obviously is that's going to be an interesting panel.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a lot of opinions there.
Yeah, exactly. And I was able to navigate that panel, I think, pretty well. And in general, I just thought I did a good job. You know, I worked hard on it. I prepared myself. I executed to a decent level of satisfaction. I wasn't super happy, but I was like, okay, you know, I did pretty well. And I never got anything for it. I have never gotten anything for any of my hosting. And that is something that I thought I would have gotten it because there was a precedent for it.
Yeah.
Like when Naha's hosting, boom, tons of people, right? And so I was pretty disappointed after Dota Pit. And I actually talked to Blitz about it. And he said something that, you know, maybe he was just being nice, but it is something that I have kind of held on to, because in a way it keeps me grounded to not expect that stuff anymore, is that once you establish a line of once you are that safe person, as you said, you're no longer get that. So he told me basically that, and he said that, you know, when people saw you that you were going to be the host, people knew you were going to be fine. So there was no need to put in a feedback thread once you were fine. You know, nobody was surprised by the fact that you were a good host. And I was like, okay. And so that I tried to hold on to that and change my idea. And that's kind of been one of the mantras that I've had ever since, is that it's just don't ever expect that stuff. If you do a good job, people expect you to continue a good job. And so you should really only worry when people are saying stuff negative. Really, there are a lot of people are saying something negative. That means you definitely are different, or maybe they're just tired of you. It's entirely possible you just kept doing the same thing and you were good. They thought you were great at the start, then you're good, and then they just got bored of you. Overexposure is a real problem, I think. So,
were you satisfied with any of the feedback that you got from Peanut Summit?
Yeah, I've not had a huge amount. It's been nice. I mean, unless it has exploded in the past 5 minutes. But it's been all right. Yeah, the Reddit. There's been limited stuff on Reddit, but there's been virtually nothing on Reddit for anyone So it's not like there's other people apart from Insania, who everyone loves at the moment, being shouted out, and I'm like,
and Insania really,
is incredible.
like,
yeah.
He.
Well, I mean, he's the 1%, right? You have a player who has a personality, like instantly, bang, done, over,
and his self-deprecating personality as well, which people will naturally lean to. Like if you're arrogant, like if you like PPD would get a shout out thread, and he's like, his character is almost the opposite of that, right? Where, you know, and people appreciate, like, he does it really well. And self-deprecating, I think it's just easier to not be the villain at all because you're already shitting on yourself, you know? So no one's going to be like, fuck that guy.
But every message I've got on Twitter or Discord has been really nice. Yeah. Which has been lovely. I'm naturally very insecure, so if I've been kind of
as all comics are, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been before I got here, I was like, I'm not going to read Twitch chat. I'm just not going to bother with it. I don't care what those people think. It's not relevant to me. But I kind of, my mind was like, but what if it's so negative? So I kind of had to know.
On the couch out there, is there a live Twitch chat monitor you can see?
No, which is nice.
So you had to choose to go back and look at chat.
Yeah, I had to look back. And there's a lot of nice stuff written on there. Some people calling me Ron Weasley, which is like, whatever.
That's the low-hanging fruit.
You haven't heard that enough, being a redhead comic, you know?
Yeah. There's some people saying, oh, Ed Sheeran. It's like, I don't even look like Ed Sheeran. I'm just ginger.
I mean, to be honest, you look more like Ed Sheeran than Ron Weasley.
Yeah, but Ron Weasley's a very fictional character.
Also, well, no, the actor who plays Ron Weasley, he looks really good. Like, of course, he looks, you know, not great in the movies because that's kind of what he's supposed to be. Now. But as he became an adult, he actually,
not kid. Let's clarify, not kid Ron Weasley.
Yeah, kid Ron.
Adult Ron Weasley.
Adult Ron Weasley can get it.
This is an 18+ podcast. We strongly.
I will fuck the shit out of Ron Weasley.
No, please cut.
I'm always up for more feedback. Like, just because if I don't get it, I assume it's bad. If that makes sense.
Right.
Like, if I get bad feedback, that's great because I already thought I had that. I need like some like confirmation is what I'm talking about.
I'm always in the camp. I'm always scared about no feedback because I generally am of the opinion that I'd rather be polarizing than neutral. So like sometimes even negative feedback's like, well, I'm glad I made you feel an emotion. And like good feedback is normally universally good unless you're like super masochistic. But sometimes if like I know that some people have posted later episodes of our show on Reddit and then just got like zero traction or like like not even icky comments but just completely neutral ones. I'm like, what are we doing wrong or right, but mostly wrong.
It's a safe pair of hands thing. People know it enough now. The only bad stuff I've had feedback has been about the closet interviews, which some people liked. I think a lot of people thought they were a bit awkward, and I don't really care because they weren't my idea. So as long as people thought the interviewing was good, then it's fine.
That's funny that you're able to so easily differentiate that.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of talent have that problem of like, good or bad. I thought it was kind of funny. In fact, my girlfriend actually messaged me and she said she like the first 2 times she saw the closet interview, she was like, this is pretty weird, but it's pretty funny. And I think a lot of talent have an issue of like being able to separate the idea versus your execution of it.
Did anyone tell you no to doing a closet interview?
Liquid did. Oh. I had this plan I wanted to get.
I'll go talk to them.
I wanted to, they were worried about coronavirus, but I wanted to, genuinely that was the reason. I had because I write a lot of stuff before, and a lot of the stuff I say on panels or in front of people is pre-written and then regurgitated. I had this idea. I wanted to get them all in the closet, like all of them and me, and then say, do you find it often claustrophobic being in a team for so long with the same people? And they'd probably go, no, it's great. And I'd be like, how about now?
That would have been good.
I never got to do it.
They ruined the bit.
Just a real big shame.
Porker, yeah. What a fun time to have a concept of like, hey, do you want to be as close together as possible?
Yeah.
Hey, what happened in the last 48 hours have been wild. I'm gonna be honest. Driving over here, I'm like,
social distancing has become a term that everyone's using right now. Let's get in the closet.
Exactly. I had to call my grandma on the way out here and be like, hey, do you want me to go to the market for you? Because I don't really want you to go. She's like, oh no, it's fine. I'm like, you're the demographic. You're gonna die.
I want my parents to go away, but they're staying in London.
They're staying in love.
Yeah.
My grandma refuses to stop working. She's well past the age that she should.
How old's your grandma?
She's close to 80 now.
Oh, that's quite young.
And then
young grandma.
Yeah, my mom is. Yeah, I think we've all been. No one's had a kid in their teens, but everyone's been below 25.
I'm the same way because my grandma's also like 75.
Yeah.
So
my grandparents are all dead because they're past 90.
So your grandma keeps on working. Mine refuses to not go to Walmart.
She works in an apple orchard too.
Oh, that's such a great grandma job.
As like a bookkeeper.
That's an amazing grandma job.
It's actually the largest. She is personal friends with the owners of the largest apple orchard in the world.
Where's that?
In Washington State.
Does that mean you've always had like a really high standard for apples?
Yeah, in a way. We get like the experimental apples. That,
experimental? What makes
like,
that experimental?
Like if you think about it, American supermarkets aren't going to just take any old apple, right?
Oh, right.
They're
So
only
you
going to
get
take certain. Like everyone's going to take Red Delicious because they look really good and they'll sell, but they taste like garbage, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, there's a reason for that. It's a safe bet. So we get we got to taste the apples that like they've experimented with and they're really good, but supermarkets won't take them yet. And you have to like slowly introduce it in a way. So you can only have a few trees for those.
Okay.
Like you can only dedicate so much of your orchard to your experiment, right? Because obviously you won't be able to sell that to make money.
Interesting. If you were an apple, what sort of apple would you be?
God, I don't remember the name of the experimental apple that we had, but it was so good. It was the right combination
And you
of
think you'd
sweet
be that
and
sort of
crisp.
apple?
Yeah, it's like what a Red
Sounds
Delicious.
like he's a snowflake, right?
It was basically.
Like I'm such a special apple. I would only be the ones that you can't get anywhere else.
It's basically it tasted what a Red Delicious looks like.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it actually was so good.
I've never been an apple person. I only like them in pastries when they're highly baked and with a lot of cinnamon.
I can eat so many apples.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always thought they were so. This might be a little bit of confession. I don't eat a lot of fruit, and I almost eat no vegetables.
That's really bad.
I know. I'm probably gonna die really young.
You sound like Slacks right now.
because of my diet?
I swear to God, yes. Because Slacks, I'm not sure if that man's ever eaten a vegetable, unless it was on like accident. You know.
That's not true. I love broccoli when it's in Chinese food and smothered with a lot of sauce.
Yeah,
that's fine. What other vegetables are good? Potatoes.
They're not a vegetable.
That's a starch.
Okay. I don't.
They count as a vegetable in Australia, but not elsewhere.
Why?
I don't know. They do actually have a vitamin in them, but Australians count them as part of your 5 a day. I used to do a bit about this that no one ever liked.
Great. Please regurgitate it.
It was all about how I tried to eat 7 fruit and vegetables a day, which is what you're meant to eat, but it caused me so much stress that it was detrimental to my health. It wasn't that good.
Okay. I see the irony of it. The concept of the joke is pretty funny though.
Yeah. And I used to talk about how Australians fought potatoes with vegetables, and that's kind of it. They do.
They're upside down or whatever the.
So if you talk to gods, he'll be like, "Yeah, my favorite vegetables."
And I don't know if I told you about this, Cap, but when I was in the UK in January, I went to a bar and I saw Dan, and it was great. He bought me a beer. He proceeded. I had to buy him a second one. I didn't know that was the agreement. I thought I was just getting a freebie, but very wrong about that. Never. I'm not. It's totally fine. That's not the story.
It is a detail, though.
It's a detail. Dan wasn't a very good guest. Go on.
That's fine. And when I was leaving, I'm like, maybe I'll see you in LA sometime. And we were with some of his friends, and they almost hysterically started laughing. They're like, he fucking hates traveling, and he is never going to be in LA. You're not going to see him for years unless you come back to London. And it has been less than 3 months. It's been less than 2 months.
I don't hate traveling. Why do they say that?
So your friends are lying.
I don't remember what the banter was. I do not travel very often. They're strange friends. They're my internet friends.
Okay.
They're not my normal real life friends.
What classification do we fall in?
These friends? Is that
No,
what you're
I
saying?
like them. So I always posted on internet forums ever since I was like 13. I started on I started on the. Do you remember the first version of the Warhammer Online MMO?
Negative.
I don't.
They released one.
I mean,
very
yes,
different
and
to the first one they made. They were making it at the same time as World of Warcraft, and I was very much in the Warhammer Online trend.
How'd that turn out?
It did not get released. And, World of Warcraft did get released and became World of Warcraft. I used to post on that forum, and then I moved over to the PC Gamer US forums and the PC Gamer UK forums, and then from there, a sub forum of that forum got made called Praise World, which I used to post on, and then that got turned into a sub forum called Parvini's World, started by a man called Nemo Parvini, who is a senior professor at Surrey University and also now an alt-right online racist.
By coincidence, or?
And then eventually you grew up to be somebody who started complaining about women in their field. Yes, go on.
He's an online racist now called the Academic Agent, but he's also a professor at Surrey University. So he was on that forum, and then after a while, called Parvini's World, which then became Ivory Towers, and then we stopped liking him, and we made a new forum called Ebony Castle, which then he was banned by, which is how he became an online racist, because we banned him from our forum. Anyway, so that's how I know those friends.
There's one person listening who is very, very excited by this.
Yeah, and you definitely listen to our podcast because you understand that we're trying to hit the smallest demographic possible, and I think you just nailed it.
There's one person who's like, Emery Castle? Oh, I love that.
No, there's only about 6 people who post on Ebony Castle. It's those guys you met. I've known them genuinely for 17 years, but it's just been a filtering down of our little forum over the years.
Was there a point in time where you switched from like a forum name to using your real human name?
I used to be XYZIA was my name.
Do you think you was ZED or he's just saying it's the Z?
It was definitely the letter Z.
The letter Z, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Which never had a pronunciation. And then I switched to Dan when we moved over to Ivory Towers.
Okay. I'm just still amused by the fact that you were on a forum called Ivory Towers.
It was because it was like a unique. Because we hate the people on Praise World because they were nerds. And
Okay.
we were cool nerds.
So did you get into gaming mostly from like a Warhammer standpoint, or like what was your esports background pre Dota?
I played a lot of StarCraft back in the day. That was the first esport I liked. But I used to play a lot of Warcraft 3 when I was a child. I used to play a lot of custom games.
Like Brood War StarCraft or StarCraft 2?
StarCraft 2.
Okay.
But that was the first esport I watched.
Okay.
And then when that sort of started dying, I started. Well, I was curious about Dota because I played so many Warcraft 3 custom games, and I used to join Defense of the Ancients maps, then immediately get kicked out. It was like this weird thing, like
you needed to
download the thing.
download the map, and so if you were somebody who needed to download the map, you just automatically get kicked. But it was a sign you were a noob.
Yeah, because no one wanted to play with.
You didn't know how to find the map online and install it. So if you didn't know how to do that, then you didn't deserve to play in this goddamn game.
Exactly. But that's
Dota has always been mega elitist,
dude,
and it all starts in Warcraft 3.
That's rough.
So I occasionally would get into a game because people wouldn't kick me, and I'd always buy like 9. Well, I would never get to the point where I could buy 6, but I'd buy like a Blade of Attack because they would do damage. I don't believe in anything that doesn't do damage. And then just feed bottom lane repeatedly.
So, what was the first event that you went to then? Because there weren't really any StarCraft events in the UK or even really Europe, right?
I never went to an event.
This is this technically it?
I went to ESL1 Birmingham.
Okay.
Last year, and that was my first ever esports event. And I did actually go to a pub stomp hosted by Pyrian Flax and Cyborg Matt back in 2013 when I was writing for the UK Dota website. That was when Pyrian Flax had just broken through.
Back in YouTube Pyrian Flax stage?
Yeah, YouTube Pyrian Flax. He made everyone little badges. It was quite cool.
I miss that. Sometimes I wonder about what would happen if we kept on making stuff like that. Everything's gone. It's crazy to think that is shit. 5 years ago, 6 years ago at this point.
It's more than that, yeah. Well, 6 years ago. That was when I was out of university and not working. So a long time.
And you're like Dota.
Yeah. Well, I just spent ages playing Dota for that year, trying to get a job, and it went badly.
So just naturally, if you can't find anything else, like eventually you'll just come full circle and be in Dota.
Yeah, that's how it's ended up.
Man, is there anyone that you met here at the summit who like you were stoked to see, or anyone who? I mean, I guess you don't want to talk about anyone who was like surprised.
It's okay.
You can say
I'll allow it.
Well, no, I was stoked to meet. I was really excited to meet Tsunami. So it was a real shame he wasn't going to get here.
Yeah.
That's
for those of you guys who don't know, Tsunami came here from the minor, and a Dota player ended up getting really sick at the minor, and therefore everyone was afraid of coronavirus. I wasn't sure if I was going to say his name. Brax is fine.
I almost said the name, and I'm like, I'm not going to say it, and then you just said it, and I'm like,
Right.
But he's fine.
If you want.
Brax is fine. I've been talking to him the last couple of days, and he got a little bad, but he's good now.
yeah, I think Tsunami's in
because of that fear, Tsunami was not allowed to come to the event. He had to stay in the hotel.
Yeah, so he's just been in the player hotel for 4 days.
Yeah,
just kind of
chilling.
chilling.
In that hotel that we're staying in?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I could have said hello to him.
Yes, you could.
No, he was here.
You could have potentially
corona.
You could have exponentially exposed yourself to corona. No, and actually he was helping me do some video edits. I needed like a contractor to do some work, so I had him work on some liquid stuff while he was here. That's so amazing. He still got paid. But yeah, that's how that happened. Maybe it was a blessing. Maybe there was one less warm body here to do stuff. So like then you get to do more stuff. You should be happy more people should have got corona, because then you could have been more exposed to.
Well, I think I had the right amount of exposure, but it was good that he wasn't here for me. It was nice to meet him. To be honest, I was excited about meeting everyone. BSJ was the one I knew the least because I've not interviewed him. I've not interviewed Grant either. So I didn't know him, but I obviously have watched a lot of his stuff. But everyone I'd interviewed, I was really excited to get to know and meet. It was really nice.
What'd you think of everybody?
Nice, yeah. I mean, it's weird coming into a group of people who know each other very well.
Yeah.
Especially as the double outsider of not being from the country that everyone else is from.
Yeah.
And also being not as heavy a gamer as everyone else, I think. Because I play a lot of Dota, but I don't play that much. And I'm not like a big gamery bro type, which not that you all are that sort of person, but there's a certain way that everyone talks.
Yeah, I feel you, bro.
Which I don't, and I never have. So that was kind of strange, but it was really nice. People were really, really supportive and helpful. It was nice to meet people, and the people as you expect them to be. But I guess there's no one who's been like this person's a weirdo and a massive dick.
Well, I mean, would you say if they were anyways? Like,
no, I wouldn't. You'll have to take me on.
But he wouldn't necessarily say nobody was a massive dick.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Did anybody surprise you?
Not particularly.
Okay.
Surprised me how.
So I was curious what you thought of. So we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of fun off camera, particularly if the conversation is involving slacks or blitz. Because and we have more fun because I would say all of our humors tend more towards the R-rated, not quite appropriate for stream, maybe not politically correct, all those sorts of things. So, but we have a hell of a time. But it's obviously not for stream, and I was just curious because we were having fun with the Bernie Sand King.
Sand King.
Slacks has got an idea of a sketch that will not be.
I mean, that sounds really good. I'll help him develop that. Now that I know it's a thing, I'm going to message him later and be like, let's make this a real thing.
No, I found that all very funny. It was good. It was because that's the sort of humor that I have in my normal, like the other podcasts I do, Faking Lit, is very much like that. Kind of just people making stupid jokes and kind of pushing an idea really, really, really far into the point of absurdity. So I enjoyed meeting Slacks a lot. That was really fun. And I think the humor I got on really well with, which is kind of what I wanted to bring out more on stream. I think I ended up being on the couches kind of doing what I sort of do well, which is just making quips at the side, because I can do that quite well. I know how to write a joke, I know how to deliver a joke, so I could just make jokes at the side that wouldn't really expose myself. But my humor at its best is very much more carefree and experimental and loud, which I didn't really feel I had the confidence to do, because you don't kind of want to be going out talking a load of nonsense when no one really knows who you are.
Yeah, right. Like it's like you almost need the trust in someone else on the couch to play with you properly.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't think anyone else would have trusted me to do, which is fine. But it was nice doing that off camera, certainly, with everyone. That was really fun.
I've always wanted to bring that environment to viewers to see what they would think, because in the moment, like when I'm experiencing, like I think this is the funniest thing. Like most of the time backstage, like I have the most fun in the break periods with the other talent. Like there will be something that happens that's 10 times funnier than anything that happens on panel, and I always think to myself, like, why isn't this a part of the show? And I mean, so much of it is just because it's not for the stream. It's a lot of it's very unprofessional. Some of it's very flamey, in like usually it's not like in a mean way.
Yeah. But no one,
like the way we treat Kyle is probably the closest thing that comes to it, like on panel, you know, because we that's what we do to each other off stream, and Kyle's like he's the easiest person to make those kind of jokes, just as a target, as well as he takes it really well.
Yeah, he's good at it.
Do you think that's more because you're worried that the audience wouldn't react well, or like the TOs wouldn't react well, or like what is the biggest barrier to like being more like that on camera?
I don't really know. I mean, I think it's different for different people. I think Blitz would feel very uncomfortable with those kind of jokes, and being judged for those kind of jokes, let's say. I am generally a person who I can never start jokes. You know, I can never start that atmosphere, but I can go along with it really well. So I'm kind of like that filler person. Slacks does do some crazy shit. It's just none of it's like that politically incorrect, or none of it's that dark. He's
good at the line. He understands the line much better than people realize.
Yes, he definitely does, because he crosses over that line really far.
But it's also, I think a lot of that stuff comes out of being kind of mean to people that you know reasonably well. And that doesn't come across on stream because you don't know how much everyone's relationship is.
Or they're too far away in that they're like political figures or celebrities or something. You can't quite make that joke on stream with a bunch of people because, you know, like let's say there were some Kobe jokes, for example.
Yeah, I mean, did they go down in a burning... What happened to helicopter? Something like that.
Okay, so one of the jokes was, well, it wasn't actually Kobe, but like one of the funnier instances we were talking about was somebody said that, do you know who Vegas Mike is?
No, I don't.
Vegas Mike is the flat earther who was convinced that like airplanes, for example, that their windows are that there's something there that makes you think that the world is round, for example. So
that's just true. But
he
go on.
He needed to be able to create his own craft to be able to get up high enough to be able to show the world that it's flat. And he did that. He created his own device, and he went up and he came down very hard.
Okay.
And so I won't share too much of this, but the joke was somebody said he died as he lived. The other person responded flat. That's a joke that's like that's obviously a little not okay for on stream, but it's really funny.
People want to focus on Dota more than they want to focus on like comedy, I guess, because I guess ultimately people are coming here for Dota and not necessarily for people to be comedians all the time.
It takes time to do that as well. To get to that point, there'd been precursors and precursors and precursors.
Right.
So you're talking about 15 minutes of comedy. I also think that from my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the talent who work at Dota events, there's a fairly solid political and social consensus. Most people are relatively have a similar sense of
I'm convinced there's a secret alt-writer in the mix.
Yeah, possibly.
But mathematically there has to be someone. We just don't know who they are yet.
But yes, most of us we're the same age group. We're either white or Asian, and we're usually all liberal, or at least center.
Yes, at most center left.
Yeah,
and always quite socially liberal as well. And so the jokes will go around that line, and not everyone at home is going to be that.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Like you can't really like just as an easy example, like you can't really stand up on soapbox necessarily about like gay rights and stuff. Because you're talking to an international audience as an English speaker. So you've got people from all over the world. So it's not really that place to make anything like that. Or joke about how dumb people are for being homophobic or something like that. Like the
because someone will be
those
mad.
jokes come out sometimes, but it's like...
Well, I mean, the chicken does taste good.
I didn't.
He didn't like the chicken
I
that
thought
much.
it was pretty bad.
Pretty bad?
Yeah, it was fine. It was like a 4 out of 10.
What was your Chick-fil-A experience?
It was taken from here, so I.
It was close by?
No,
it was
in
in,
the
like,
cafe.
catered.
Catered.
Oh, okay. Well,
So maybe that's not
what was the period of time between meal finished being cooked and meal in your mouth?
probably quite a distance.
Okay, you can't judge on this.
Yeah, maybe. But I didn't think it was worth betraying any principles over. Is what I'm saying.
The hate makes the chicken taste better. It's actually one of the, you know how like the Colonel had 7 ingredients? Chick-fil-A has like 8 or 9 and one of them is hate.
He was a champion of lots of rights, Colonel Sanders. I always thought he was a racist. I just assumed.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't at all.
like
He was actually really liberal. Yeah.
You know, just the assumptions you make. That person Southern must be racist.
To be fair, if you're gonna line up 10 people from Kentucky, it's pretty fair to at least say 9 of them are racist, right? So like,
especially back then.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's abrupt, maybe. Sorry. If you want to keep listening, you gotta check out part 2, which is on Dan's feed. So look up Position 6 Podcast. It'll be on, I'm pretty sure, whichever podcast app you're on right now, and you'll find part 2. It continues, like literally, it just keeps going. There's another like 40 or 50 minutes. So hopefully you liked it and you want to go listen to his feed, or if you're from his feed and you were here, you're probably already gonna go back and listen to the other one. It's fine. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for supporting us. Yeah. Don't get sick. Or try not to.